Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how to change the brakes on this 440i. Alright, so we have our pads up here. These are just some pads I had laying around for my sister's car, but she's getting rid of that, so good thing we could put these to use. And then we have our front rotors and our rear rotors right here. So the first thing we're going to do is jack up the car and then pop this wheel off. Before we get the car off the ground, you want to break these lug nuts off of here. Alright, so I'm going to start by taking out the pads out of this caliper. I'm going to do this because it is easier to do it with the caliper mounted onto the hub. So what you want to do is get a pin or something like a pin. As you can tell, I don't have proper tools, but I'm going to stick it right in this little hole, and that's going to pop this pin out right here. You want to take your hammer, give her a little tap root. Do the same on here with the bottom one. Alright, now that I popped those out, I'm going to use a pair of pliers. Sometimes you can get them far enough so you can wiggle it with your fingers, but pliers will do just fine. Just grab it gently and just pry it out. I'm going to push on the spring to keep it a little bit free over here so it's not pushing on it the whole entire time, and pull out and wiggle it out at the same time. And here's our one pin, so do the same thing with the bottom one. Now that we got the pins out, now we can take out the pads, and then what I'm going to do is just grab the ends of them and try to wiggle them out. What I just did right there is pulling the pad over so it pushes the pistons back in a little bit, and that gives us a lot more room. Now, being that this is the driver's side, this pad here is going to have a wear sensor, and the wear sensor is going to be very difficult just to rip out. So what I'm going to do is disconnect it from the box, and this will all come out as one. So I'm just going to let this dangle here for a sec. So what I'm doing is disconnecting the grommet for the brake wear sensor from its little holder right there, so it's a little bit more free when we take it out of the box. The way to open the box is take off these two little tabs right there. The box should open with all your connections in there. So just pull the little grommet off of the top of the box and the bottom of the box, and as you see, there's a little connection. So all that is just a push pin, so you kind of just push on it and pull it, and it should just come apart like that. And then you'll want to just disconnect all your little grommets from their holders, and your whole brake will be out with your sensor. Now your brake calipers are going to be held on by two E16 bolts. I'm going to point at the one up here on the top, and then I'm also going to point at the one at the bottom. So as you're taking the bolts off your caliper, you want to make sure that you have some zip ties handy, so then you can strap it to your spring or something to hold the caliper up, because you don't want your caliper just to be dangling with the brake line connected to it. Okay, so now that we have our brake caliper zip tied to our spring so then we do not pull any tension on our brake line, we're going to take off our rotor here. And the way how we're going to do that is take off this little screw here, and that is held on by a H6 hex head. Alright, the ways to get this rotor off is being a little persuasive with it. So let's just give her a few tap-taparoos and she should come off. Champagne. Now let's go get our new rotor. Alright guys, so our rotors are in this box here, so let's open her up. These are the Zimmerman rotors, I'm pretty sure. Got front and rear. But the front ones are drilled and slotted. I actually just wanted slotted, but they didn't have any in stock, and they also didn't have just slotted stock for the rear, so the rears are blanks, which you all know that rears hardly do anything. But here are our fronts. You ready for this big reveal, my dudes?
Okay.
Would you just look at them? Look at these here rotors, my dudes. Oh, these aren't drilled and slotted, these are just dimpled and slotted. Okay, so I'm fine with that. I just didn't want it to crack because of the drill. Let's go throw it in the car. Alright, so we want to take our rotor here and throw her on. Make sure the holes line up. Hold it there. Grab your hex bolt. Put her in her spot, get her started. Now that we got that started, we can push on it and... Okay, these birds are so loud. Alright, so now that we got that started, we can take our ratchet here, make sure everything is flush. Give her a good crank on there. She's on there. Now that your rotor is mounted, you can take your caliper and mount it over top of your rotor. Okay, so now that you have your new brake pads, this is the side with the new brake sensor. So you want to go put this inside of here and make sure it clips into place. As you can see, that's in there. And then you can go wire this up. Before we put these pads in, you want to take your brake lube. Most of these pads come supplied with them. So apply your brake lube across here and then put her in. Now that we have this new brake pad, we can slide this one in too. Now that your pads are just put into place, you can route your wire for your brake wear sensor into the box and also make sure your connection is firmly connected. Now that everything is kind of set into place, you can take your pins and start lining them up. The way how I did it was kind of wiggle the pads back and forth and also the spring to make sure everything lines up correctly. And once you figure out everything's lined up correctly, you can take your nice little spider killing hammer and beat her into place. Make sure that it is flush in the back. So once you get all that done, your front brakes are done. Now you can throw in your wheel and we can move on to the back. Okay, so now that we're at the back of the car, we're going to take off our rear rotor and replace the pads and rotors on this one. So you're going to take your big screwdriver to remove this clip. All you have to do is pop her out. She just pops right out, as you can see. Next thing you want to do is take out the caliper. So on the back of here, we have two 16mm screws that we have to pop out. And we'll take this out and show you how to remove the pads. Actually, first I'm going to take the hex bolts out of the caliper that's connected to the caliper bracket, so then it's a little bit easier being that the caliper bracket is sturdy. And then I'm going to move on to the caliper bracket bolts, which are the 16mm, to remove everything. And also, these 16mm bolts are extremely stiff, but BMW also recommends that you replace these after each time you take them off. So you do you, boo boo. Alright, well, I was going to show you how to take off this rotor before I show you how to take off the pads, but the pads just fell apart. So, yeah, this just fell out. The bracket just fell off. And I have a zip tie here to hold this on here just in case I dropped it, so then we don't strain any stress on the brake line over here. So, to take this one off, you just pull up like that, and then she's out. Now what we're going to do is take off our rotor here before we move on with anything with the brake pads yet. Alright, to take off this rotor, it's basically the same exact thing to take off the rotor off the other side. So you got your 6mm hex socket here, and then pop off this nut here. Then we can take off our rotor.
Said you were keeping them.
So as you can see, our nice new one compared to our old crusty boy right there. Little comparison shot. This is going to look way better with new wheels on it too, instead of having all that rust around there. Now that that's on there tight, now we can go and move on to the pad. Now that we have our new pad here, we can grease it up. So I'm going to grease up just these little tiny spots here. That's where it's going to have all your movement at. Now we can go install it on the car. Now I can put this in the caliper here. Just make sure it snaps back into place. Alright, so what I'm going to do is put on this bracket first and then throw on our caliper. So you want to take your two 16mm bolts and put them back through here. Alright, so now that I got this bracket on, we have our brake pad in the back part of the caliper. I'm going to push on the brake pad to give us some more space over here, so then I have enough room to slide this caliper and to slide this brake pad in there. Alright, so now that this is on, then we can throw those two hex head bolts through the back side over here. Alright, so now that we have our caliper on, we can put our little spring in here. Alright. Make sure that's all nice and tight. And that's how you do the back side. And I already showed you how to do the front. So now what we have to do is just repeat all this on the other side. Make sure on the passenger side you also replace your brake wear sensor, and the front driver side is going to have the brake wear sensor, and on the passenger side for the front will not have a brake wear sensor, just like this one. So on this side of the brakes, we have a wire sensor right here, or a brake wire sensor right here, and let's follow that around and it will come out over to here. Then we need to get a 10mm socket and take off this 10mm bolt to pull back our liner to get to the little case that covers our connection. Okay, so after you put everything back, you want to go hop in your car, make sure you pump up your brakes, make sure you have some good brake feel. So now what we're doing is getting onto the road, so then we can go brake in our brakes. So being that we don't live in such a like very non-people-ish area, I'm going to like hop onto like the little off-rampy things over here, because right now, so I'm going about 50-ish miles an hour. You should really break this in. Oh, okay, hold on, there's a person passing me, so I should be good to do this on the road here. So I'm going to slow down to around 40 miles an hour and get a little bit straight here. Hold on to the camera, make sure you don't fall off the car, and brake hard. Alright, felt decent. Okay, so get back up to 40, make sure no one's coming behind you, make sure you're safe, and brake hard. All the way down to about 5 miles an hour. And I would say do that about like 3 to 4-ish times. So I'm gonna hop on over here, onto this off-ramp, going about 40 miles an hour, and let's see how fast this can stop. Alright, good. That actually stopped way faster than I thought. So now we're good. So now you don't have to test out your brakes on someone's back bumper. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I'll see you next video. Bye.